Hey, welcome back everybody to another video. There are rumors or about the Colorado hire in terms of the defensive coordinator. We all know that Charles Kelly left to go back to his alma mater to be a co-defensive coordinator over there in Auburn. So there's a void there in Colorado right now that needs to be filled. So right now, what we do know, or well, I think it's not that we know it, but these are just possible candidates. Ken Norton is being considered as a defensive coordinator for Colorado. Now, Ken Norton, I think he was recently the linebackers coach or the defensive coordinator at UCLA. I'm not sure. That would be a good hire. That's another big name. I'm also hearing about Ed Reed being brought there to work in the secondary with the DBs and the cornerbacks. And also, Warren Sapp is going to be working with the D linemen. I don't know to what capacity these guys are going to be, or what the title is going to be. And then I'm even hearing about Ocho Cinco coming on with Colorado to work with the receivers. I don't have a problem with the names. I don't have a personal angst against any of those guys. But the problem I have with that is when you have an onslaught of players that are being brought to coach, and the players' names are bigger than the program, that's a problem. It becomes another circus show. Point two, 1.2, 2.0. Coach Prime in it by itself, his name, Coach Prime, his brand by itself is big enough. I think it overwhelms the team at times. Ken Norton, ex-NFL player, three-time Super Bowl champion. He played in the NFL. You're bringing him in. Not bad. Ed Reed, another Super Bowl Hall of Fame type player. Ocho Cinco. I mean, if that Warren Sapp, if that happens, then people are going to be watching the Colorado Buffaloes to watch the coaches. People aren't going to be tuned in to watch the games, or they're watching the games to see how the players are going to play underneath the tutelage of those men. I think that's a problem. It's too much star power. Too much of a good thing sometimes is not good. There needs to be a moderation of that. I think Coach Prime is enough. Get a bunch of, grimy, flowing under the radar type coaches who just grind, who love football more than life. They eat, sleep football. They drink football. They talk football. Don't get me names. Don't give me a bunch of talented guys that played in the NFL to bring them on your team. Because that, to me, is more about a recruiting tool more than anything. It's not about coaching. It's about getting these great players to come there to have more players get attracted to come into play for those great players. But we always have to remember there's a reason why most great players are not great coaches. Because players that are great had the talent level that they didn't have to think much. Their skill of speed and strength would make up for the cerebral. A lot of ex-players that are good coaches were players that were kind of average or not that very good. Most of their games were predicated on thinking. Okay? Phil Jackson wasn't a great player. Greg Auerbach wasn't a great player. You think Bill Belichick was a great player? I mean, most great coaches were not great players. And to have a slew of star-powered lineup in terms of your coaches, I think that's a problem. I think that becomes that's why a lot of people have a heightened degree of constructive criticism against Coach Prime. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that Ken Norton, Ed Reed, Warren Sapp, and Ocho Cinco are not part of that coaching tree. I hope they're not coming there because most of these guys don't have Power 5 coaching experience. I know Ed Reed, I know he coached in the NFL, worked with the secondary, and that year was 2016, I believe, 2015, 2016. The team went 7-9, 7-8, 7-9, something like that. Ken Norton is probably the only hire to me that would make sense, and that's it. Cut it off. You got to get a bunch of I'm not going to say they're nobodies, but they're somebodies because they're great teachers. They're great with X's and O's. They are great schematically. They know how to take what they have and adjust their coaching philosophy to match their personnel. Just getting big names on your campus is just a recruiting tool to me. It doesn't do anything by adding any substance to your football team. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You get all those coaches there. I'm gonna be just tuning in to see them on the sideline. More of the cameras will be panning on them, kind of like when Taylor Swift goes to the games to watch Kansas City Chiefs play. Every play, they're panning the camera to go to her. They go back to the football game. Then they go back to her. Then they go back to the football game. I think that's what Colorado football is going to entail. If you get all those stars as coaches, Ed Reed. I'm not saying these guys cannot be good coaches. I'm not saying that it's impossible for them to be good coaches. I just feel in a rebuild, you have to start with a degree of humility. When you're bringing in all these flashy names, it takes away from the integrity of your team. It makes it seem as if your team is all about flash. And that's when you get these comments from when people are saying things that your team's about flash, no substance. All right? It's a great marketing tool. If it's about marketing and generate more revenue, then go, by all means, do what you need to do, Coach Prime. Get a bunch of Hall of Famers and put them in as coaches. Get Michael Irvin to join your team, too. Just get a bunch of guys that played in the NFL and put them on your sideline. But is that going to equate to wins? Is that going to equate to actually developing your team offensively, defensively, special teams? You got to get guys that people don't know about, people who grind, people who know the X's and O's of football, people who understand schematics. Not saying that ex-NFL players don't, but there's a reason why these players were great. They were great because they had physical abilities that other people didn't have. Now, did they work hard? Of course they worked hard. But there's a cerebral aspect of football. There's a strength, there's a training, there's nutrition. We understand that. Those are the things that manifest themselves on the physical side. But there also needs to be a mental component. And the mental component is usually handled by the men who people don't see. The people who just scrapped and worked hard while everybody was sleeping. They were carving out plays on their pad, thinking of schemes, watching film all day. All right, do we think that the coach for San Francisco 49ers was a great player? I don't even think he played in the NFL, but he's a great coach because he studied the game. Most great players didn't study the game. They just played the game because they had the great ability. And you're bringing in those men to coach young developing athletes to develop them into being great players. I think that's going to be hard. I think what you're going to do if you get that lineup, if you get Ken Norton there, you get Ed Reed there to work with the secondary, you get Warren Sapp there. I think Warren Sapp is already there. I think that's been announced. And then you get Ocho Cinco there. You're going to get – this is just a star-studded coaching staff that haven't accomplished anything. Coach Prime hasn't accomplished anything. I mean, he's accomplished something in Jackson State. But in terms of the Power 5 conferences, you just have a bunch of names that haven't accomplished anything. And so you're gonna garner a lot of attention. A lot of people are going to be tuning in to watch the games, but not only watch the games, but to watch the coaches to see how well they do. And so to me, I don't think that's the route that Coach Prime should take. Get teachers. You're the motivator, Coach Prime. Get a bunch of teachers. Get a bunch of bored, lame coaches. When I say lame, I mean lame in terms of their personality. You want coaches who understand how to scheme up a philosophy on the defensive side and the offensive side that accentuates the personnel that you have. And to bring out the best of your team. Not saying your team's going to win the national championship next year, but it brings out the best. It optimizes your potential. You work on the better half of your potential versus working on the lower half of your potential. Okay? So we'll see how it goes. But I don't think that lineup of coaches is a good idea to me. Just too much. It sounds good because the novice would think, oh, great players, great coaches. It doesn't work that way. You can't just get a bunch of ex-players who used to play and just put them on a team and say, go get them. So because you saw success from these ex-NFL players, you're thinking somehow that that's going to translate to them as coaches. It doesn't work that way. Great player does not always translate to great coach because when you're coaching, it's not in your hand. You're not in control. You are coaching young men, but you're not doing it living vicariously through them as if they're puppets. You have to take them at their level, at whatever skill that they can actually put forth, and work with them with what they have, factoring in their strengths and weaknesses, and honing in on their strengths to minimize their weaknesses. And that takes time and patience. A lot of great players don't have time and patience. They want to see results now, because when they play, they saw results now because they had the physical abilities, they had the strengths, they had the God-given talent and the God-given gifts. It was something they were just born with. The DNA, they were blessed with that. So automatically thinking that the success of Ed Reed and Ken Norton and Ocho Cinco and Warren Sapp is going to actually translate to what the Colorado football team is going to do on the football field, it's fool's gold. We have to be wiser than that as people. That's an emotional hire to pull on the heartstrings of the gullible and the naive. Because when you see that personnel, when you see Ken Norton, when you see Ed Reed, Warren Sapp, Ocho Cinco, you're like, oh my God, look at these great names. Automatically your brain goes to, oh, great names, great players, great team success. Oh, that's going to translate to Colorado football. Not necessarily, folks. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So that's my take on that. I don't think that lineup is a good thing for Colorado right now. All right. Thank you guys for listening. All right. Bye.